going, eh?
Bro, we're not mucking around yet. Trying to get a Netflix deal. Rico Gomez from NeuroFit.
Yeah,
Tell us about NeuroFit, man.
we're in the mental health space really, but we're more down like the coaching and consulting space.
I think it's good to see that the discussion around mental health is starting to become a lot more mainstream.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
a lot more prevalent, and a lot of organizations are starting to realize the importance of having those discussions and looking after your staff. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you is because Canterbury in particular,
Yeah,
we've been through quite a lot.
this is true.
Not in the last 10 years, not just including COVID-19. And we're often described as being a resilient bunch here in Canterbury,
Yes.
but we still have a lot of mahi to be done in that mental
Yeah.
health space. What does mental resilience
What
mean for you?
What is mental resilience? I mean, well, one, I think sometimes we think, once resilient, always resilient, and that's just stupid. Like, that's never, like, that means I can go to the gym, squat once, and say, I'll always be great at squatting. That's
Yeah.
never gonna be. So, resilience is something it's upkeep. It's built
Yeah.
over time, and so yes, we can have lots of things. Like we've had the shootings, we've had earthquakes, we've had a lot of stuff happen here, and in those seasons, you see us at our best. So you see community actually strong for once. You see people, talking to people they don't know and relating on their pain, and those little things. That's what builds resilience. Not wallowing on the pain, but like actually caring, encouraging one another. Those things build resilience. A couple months after a tragedy, we go back to normal, go back into isolation, live our own, lives by ourselves, and then our resilience just kind of begins to drop again.
Yeah.
Because it is something that has to be kept up. And there's a lot of things you can do to build resilience, but like as a city, the number one thing is actually relating on what's emotion. So obviously something would have happened. Let's say it was the shootings, right?
Yeah.
And so that in itself, our whole city became, a support for the Muslim community and began to open up their perspectives on, life in general. And so now you're having discussions, even when we're talking about racial stuff through COVID. We're having discussions now, and what that does is that brings up things that have been buried. Maybe we're still living in survival mode from something. You bring it up and you open that whole thought up in your brain to take on new data, new information, new emotion, which then changes your perception, and that's what builds your resilience, because now you're taking someone else's view, broadening your spectrum, and then putting it back into your unconscious part of your mind, which is the driver. And so now you're walking around with a new perspective thanks to actually opening up with someone on an emotional level. And that's what builds resilience on a consistent basis. So like, for example, like you go to we're both from Africa.
Yeah. Shout out to Africa.
And there's always been adversity. There's always been, a bit of like, I'm from South Africa, so like with apartheid, stuff like that, so racial stuff, we've always had to relate on pain, and therefore our culture is really strong. And, you might look at the resources externally and they don't have much, but they are the happiest, most hopeful people. And you got to ask the question, but it's because they actually built resilience, because they're constantly having to find hope, joy in amongst the chaos. And over here, we just often don't.
Yeah, that's crazy. I like that gym analogy, because I think we can simplify being resilient as just like, right, I've done this course,
Yeah,
I'm sorted for life. I've reached this like level of knowing and awareness. But similar to the gym, like you have to practice. And
100%. If we don't do anything good to condition our brain, we cannot expect it to perform at a level that we want.
Yeah.
So, for example, we can't expect our brain to act, out of the blue optimistically or in a gratitude way. We all know it's good to be grateful, right? But like, if you don't practice gratitude, so you don't physically write things down on a consistent basis, why would you naturally respond in a grateful way when something bad happens?
True.
You know, so you naturally you've got to condition your brain with little things on a consistent basis to have it being ready to respond.
Yeah. What are some of the shortcomings or the common trends that you're seeing from a workplace perspective? Because I know, even though it's something that we're talking a lot more about, but a lot of workplaces are still not entirely sure how to navigate it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many things, right? Because I think sometimes we grow our knowledge, because we are very like knowledge consuming right now. So we think once we know it, we're good, we're free, we're set. And unfortunately, our knowledge doesn't mean much. So sometimes we in a workplace, we can hear one thing, like we'll go to one seminar, right? Or let's say leader goes to one seminar.
Or watches a TED Talk.
You know, watches a TED Talk, and he's like, oh, this is gonna fix everything. And so, and he tries to force one thing on everything in the business, and then unfortunately it doesn't work, because people, culture, completely different.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things I would like to say when it comes to workplace, but the main thing is that I teach a lot of businesses or leaders around culture, is that if a person, especially with like Generation Z coming into the workplace or in the workplace now, they do not like, money is like not their main concern. You know, so
not the main motivating factor.
Yeah, no, not the main motivating factor. So like, let's say you're a lawyer, and the law system, you know, says that you come from uni, you work your butt off, wrap those 80-hour weeks, to work your way up. Maybe you get treated like crap all the way through, to work your way up to partnership level, and then maybe you can earn something of your life, right? Yeah. And unfortunately, with today's age, that's just not the lifestyle that people want. Yeah. People want it.
I can't imagine why.
You know, yeah, exactly, right? And so so now you see more staff turnover because no one's learning how to keep staff. And I always say one of the easiest way to keep a person is to tick their survival box. Okay, so now that might sound real weird. The way to tick a person's survival box is through connection and attachment. Loneliness, it impacts your body like you're having 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
So like, I think in just pre-COVID, right? Pre-COVID, Western world, loneliness was the largest cause of death in the Western world.
That's crazy.
Because loneliness, one, you're constantly living in survival, and then you're also breeding a lot of toxic thoughts. No one's ever addressing your ways of thinking. You're not having new conversations on a daily basis
about able to share any of those thoughts.
And so now we're breeding in toxic emotion, and therefore we're living in toxic stress, and our bodies have to pay the price. You know, so I'm always like, I working from home, great. But if you're not getting out into community and building emotional connections, so then you're almost doing more harm to your body than good. So we can use the excuse, well, I'm introverted. Yeah. You know, and we think introverted and extroverted are two like polar opposite ends. Yeah. But even though we might have on a chart or something that we are extroverted, which means which I'm the life of the party, or I'm an introvert, which means I don't like parties, but actually we all long for emotional connection. Whether you are the life of the party or the one in the corner, you will still have a great time if you are having an emotional connection and you feel safe. Yeah, I think we oversimplify that stuff, and actually didn't even think about going here, but I find the same with personality tests. Yeah, come on, man. Speaking my language now.
Let's go there. Let's do this. All right, we're going off the hinges now. Yeah. Right, personality tests. I appreciate what they purport to do or what they intend to do. Yes. But I feel like they're also quite dangerous because they oversimplify a person. Yeah. Because we're complicated beings. 100%. Multifaceted, and it's like, you are this personality type, so therefore this is the box that you fit in. Yeah. Don't you dare try anything else. Yeah. Oh man, you're speaking my language now, man. Come on now, man.
Yeah, you're probably the first person I'm having a conversation about this. Like, I feel like, I think sometimes, especially in corporates, because we want to put people in boxes in order to understand them, right? And that kind of breeds a bit of safety. Like, cause, I can understand you now. You're this type of personality, so like that means I'm going to do only this with you.
Yeah.
But man, that one hinders their potential. Also, we're constantly changing. So there's no test in the world that can tell a person who they are.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, you disqualify their story.
Yeah.
You know, you disqualify their culture, their upbringing, and you say, this is what you are.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, that is so dangerous. And like, it's helpful if you can use it in the right way. So for example, like, oh cool, yes, this is why it makes sense now why I trust people easier, or I like to build relationships this way, or and so that's good, and you can double down on that. But if you use that as the stigma of I'm not gonna, or if you use that as I'm not gonna try, I'm not gonna try anything else.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, oh, but my personality is this one. Myers-Briggs said I'm this.
Yeah.
So that situation you're giving me is not for my personality type.
Yeah.
That new opportunity in leadership, no, I can't do that because this is what I am.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, you've just stunted your growth.
Yeah.
You've removed pressure, and pressure is good for growth. Like you can't.
I don't know if it's inherent in our human nature to try and really simplify something, but I think that's also what sort of happens in the corporate space with wellness and mental health, is that we're for someone who's picking up what you're putting down. What are, like, I guess some low-hanging fruit or some starting points? I mean, I'll link to all of your information.
Yeah, so like what you mean, like, so what are some practical tips we can actually do?
Yeah, how can we get started?
Yeah, to build our resilience. Yeah, love that. It's a great question.
How do we start? That's the entry-level squat.
Yeah, where do we start? Okay, well, here's something easy to start off with. Okay, so I would say increase your learning every single day. Why? Because every morning your brain gives birth to brand new neurons or nerve cells. And so what that means is basically you are born with new nerve cells every single morning that are unaffected by your past. They have no relation to anything that's already in your brain that may be causing toxicity, right? So those, if we don't use them, they die off and they release a toxic gas in our brain, which then causes foggy thinking, stress, all that kind of stuff. So we got to understand, okay, cool, I've got these new things, but the primary use is for learning.
Yeah.
And if we can learn, if we can increase our learning, so let's say I find a new passion of, tech.
Yeah.
If I begin to increase my understanding and deeper thinking around products, what it does, what if I connect that with this, then I'm increasing my learning, which means my brain builds.
Yeah.
And I'm using those neurons, which means I'm not letting them die off. And I'm actually building my brain in like a more dense way.
Yeah.
And what often happens is when we hit a traumatic event, say a breakup, car accident, all those kinds of things, our brain does take a knock, so we do lose a couple brain cells.
Yeah.
But if I've built a dense one, that means my ability to bounce back is a lot easier.
Yeah, wow.
If that makes sense.
So you're actually physically building those resilient points or resilient muscles in your brain.
Yeah, like they call it your brain reserve. So basically learn new things every single day.
Yeah.
And that does correlate, because the more you learn, the more you actually challenge what you already know.
Yeah. Hoping people have learned a little something new today as well, and which is actually, like, worst case scenario, someone's learned something new, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And definitely
we've built your resilience.
Yeah.
That's what we have. This is Rico from NeuroFit, a mental health coach, and this is Driving Better Business Aotearoa.
Yeah,
Let's go.